right. We are following on from yesterday. Yesterday, we investigated into our own experience of life, any experience. And what emerged is that the primacy of consciousness, that we are consciousness, we are awareness, this is our real nature. The whole upshot of the discussions yesterday was, yes, awareness, consciousness, who denies it? We all agree that we are aware, we are conscious. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal which we learned yesterday was, it's not that we are a bundle of body, mind, consciousness, which is what we instinctively feel ourselves to be. But upon investigation, that's pre-investigation, but upon investigation, we realize that we are consciousness itself. With a body and mind, acting through a body and mind. This is what became clear yesterday. And then we investigated the nature of this consciousness by itself. We know, if we say that I am this body, I am this person, then it's very clear what I am. I am these organs, this blood and bones, and this is what I am. It's very clear. Or if I'm a person, a psychological being, then also it's pretty clear what I am. I'm thoughts, I'm ideas, I'm feelings, I'm memories, I'm a story, a narrative. This is what I am. So this is our general idea of ourselves, and it seems pretty obvious. But when we shift our attention to awareness itself, what's it like? Just awareness by itself, consciousness by itself. And that's what we explored yesterday. That's what we are calling the light of lights. Because it is because of this awareness, because of this consciousness, that things are revealed to us. Our life is revealed to us. Everything that we experience in life, whatever we call life, the fundamental constituent is consciousness or awareness. Without that, no life. No problem to be solved also, but nothing good or fulfilling. It's just nothing. So, consciousness, the nature of consciousness is what we explored yesterday. If you recall, we noticed that it is continuous. We recall that it is, by itself, consciousness is not subject to modification, doesn't change. By itself, consciousness has no problems. There's something to dwell upon. All problems are imported from outside. From the world, from the body, from the mind, from the object. If you want to give it one name, from the object. The object by itself is also problem-free. It's only when these two come in contact. The consciousness has certain demands from this objective universe, and the objective universe seems to be reluctant, seems to be sullen, seems to be non-cooperative. You want a body, but a healthy body. No, not so easy. You want a mind and a peaceful mind. No, not so easy. So the world it resists consciousness. It pushes back against consciousness. And consciousness by itself has no problem. We saw that. It is continuous. It is not subject to change. It cannot be damaged or traumatized or wounded, injured. That's the body. That's the mind. It does not age. It does not have the old age problems or sickness. And consciousness by itself is fine. And it is directly, effortlessly available to us. Aparoksha. It is self-luminous, reveals itself and reveals everything. So that consciousness as the self is all right. But that's half a solution. That's half a solution. At no point can we get rid of the objective universe. The objective universe is still out there, tempting or terrifying. The body is still there. The mind is still there. We have the waking experience. We have the dream experience. And indeed, it would be very boring to wipe out this experience. You're saying consciousness by itself is fine. Then can we get rid of the universe and just be consciousness? But that would be a pretty boring kind of existence. And a very peculiar kind of existence where you're conscious, but you're not conscious of anything at all. What kind of existence would that be? I don't experience anything in the universe. I remain just light by itself, not illumining anything, and I'm fine by myself. I remember one sadhu saying this. "Wo to adha shanti hua na Mahatma ji." You have only 50% peace there. So the question remains, What is this universe? We haven't solved that. What is it, this universe? What is it in relation to us? What's it to us? What can it do for us? How can we stop it from harming us or making us unhappy? Just as consciousness, fine, but we don't exist just as consciousness. We are always in contact with the mind. We are always in contact with the body. Maybe sometimes it's shut off in deep sleep or general anesthesia, but nobody thinks that persisting in deep sleep or general anesthesia is the best kind of life possible. People do think that. That's why people drink. That's why people take to drugs. Yes, that life becomes intolerable. To put it in philosophical terms, the object becomes intolerable. So, the problem is still not solved. If you want fulfillment, if you want to overcome suffering, and yet have life, not erase life. One sadhu said, monk said, we put it in Hindi so beautifully, I've repeated a number of times, I'll repeat it here and translate. अद्वैत प्रतीति को मिटाने के लिए नहीं है महात्मा जी, अद्वैत आपको व्यवहार में निर्बाध बनाता है. So Advaita, non-duality is not wiping out experience. Stop everything. It's not about death. It's not about anesthesia. It's not about deep sleep. Not even about samadhi. What Advaita, non-duality does, what it aims at, is to make you free, fearless, fulfilled in the midst of life with all its ups and downs. You're perfectly fine, with eyes open, with eyes closed, engaged with the world and withdrawn from the world, in meditation and out of meditation. You should be free, fearless. I mean, the word nirbadha, it is difficult to translate into English. It just means limitless. It just means fearless. It just means unobstructed. Completely free and fearless in this world. Swami Vivekananda, he met Ingersoll, the great agnostic. In fact, there's a book, The Great Agnostic. In the late 19th century, he was a public speaker. And that was entertainment in those days. So people would turn up to listen to these. Think of a really, really long TED talk. So that would be it. And Ingersoll was not at all convinced about spirituality or religion. He was an agnostic. And he said to Vivekananda that he didn't believe in all of this. I believe in squeezing the orange dry, getting every drop from it. Because this life is, he said, this life is all we know. And Vivekananda gave a stunning answer, a stunning reply. He said, that is exactly what I believe too. Except, he quipped, we differ in our choice of fruit. For me, it's a mango. But then he said, but I know a better way of squeezing the orange. I know that I cannot die. Therefore, I am not in a hurry. I have no fear. I love all beings. I see God in all beings and love them. Imagine the joy of loving all beings as God. Live your life in this way and get 10,000-fold more from that squeezing that orange. Get every last drop. So non-duality, it confronts life headlong and resolves the problem of living here, right now. Here and all the time. Vivekananda says, often the advice of religion to solve the sorrows of humanity, it sounds suicidal. There was the mosquito which sat on the head of a man, and his friend came and he wanted to deliver him from the mosquito and gave such a blow that he did kill the mosquito, but he killed the man too. And the advice given by religion seems to be like that. You want peace of mind, you want joy, you want deliverance from suffering? Yes, yes, yes. All right, step back from life. Off to the Himalayas with you. Stay at 10,000 feet in the cave and don't come down from there. I'm oversimplifying. So Vivekananda says, he who runs away from life to meditate and die in a Himalayan cave has missed the way. He who plunges into life, into the vanities and luxuries of life, chasing all that, he too has missed the way. Now that's peculiar. Either you run away from all this, or you plunge into it. What other way? It's a binary. Vivekananda says, no, it's not a binary. We are missing something. Then what is the way? If you can't run away from life, or and even staying and doing the stuff that everybody else is doing, neither of them Both of them are missing the way. Neither of them is a solution. Then what is the solution? Vivekananda says the solution is to deify life itself, to see God in everything, in everybody, wherever you are, with whomever you are, to see the same divinity everywhere. Now this is the goal of Advaita Vedanta. And so we are halfway there. We have discovered the light within ourselves. We have climbed from this world to the absolute. As Sri Ramakrishna says, holding on to the Leela, we have reached the Nitya, the eternal. Now we must make our way back and take a look at this world. Sri Ramakrishna said, a man climbed up the stairs, leaving the first floor behind, the second floor behind, reached the roof of the house. And he saw what the roof was made of. When he turned back and went down, he saw the rest of the house was made of the same thing. So first he went up by neti, not the world, not the body, not the mind. And he discovered something amazing, pure consciousness. But then again, you can't live on the roof of the house. You turn around, you can if you're in Manhattan, you get these very nice rooftop little apartments. And they're very valued. They're very valued. I knew a remarkable painter who lived in Manhattan, and he wanted just that because of the light at the top of the roof, very high up. When you go in and you go back and you see the rest of the house is made of the same divinity, that same limitless, problem-free consciousness you found, and you find it everywhere in the world now. Then only our problem is solved. So that's the task we have got in the next 23 minutes. To see everything is Brahman. What is this world? Yes, I may be just this person, or I may be pure consciousness, as Vedanta is telling me. But then my question is, what is all this? And let us see the common sense approach here. That this world is matter, energy, time, space. This is real. And what you call consciousness is just derivative. It's a Johnny-come-lately. See, we are asking now, what is the question we are asking? All right, I guess I am pure consciousness, all right. I can understand that, somehow I can wrap my mind around that. But what's my relationship then with this universe? What's my relationship with the body then, with the mind then? What's my relationship to life then? Or to put it in philosophical terms, what is the relationship between the awareness and what we are aware of? What is the relationship between the subject and the object? What's the relationship between consciousness and matter? Let's start with the most obvious answer to this, which is our worldview today, which mainstream scientists, doctors, philosophers, they all say, well, the objective world, the world of matter and energy, this is reality. What about this consciousness we're talking about? Oh, that's a byproduct, an epiphenomenon. It's like a candle burning. The candle is the reality. When it's burning, it produces a little flame, flickering flame. The flame is not fundamental. The candle is fundamental. It burns and it produces the flame. The body, the brain is burning. It's working intensely. And the byproduct of all those chemical activities, neurochemical activities, the electrical activities in the neurons, byproduct is you. It's an afterthought. As one professor said, he was sitting with a Coke bottle on his table and he's giving a lecture. He says the mainstream view in modern science is we are like that Coke bottle. It's fizzing. So there's lots of things fizzing here, and that's the byproduct is you. You are the fizz. Very soon the fizz, goes away. And then you're gone. And this material body will continue. It will fall apart and go back to the physical and the universe around us. So we are secondary. We are byproducts. We are epiphenomenon. We are not important. We come later. So this, by the way, what I just said is is our shared worldview. Matter is real. Consciousness is a peculiar byproduct. I mean, many scientists are there who would be, or philosophers of science, who would be happy if there were no consciousness. Because it's a messy thing, very difficult to explain through science. You just deny consciousness, matter, energy, time, space, that's it. It's neat. Except it isn't. So, let's start there. What's the claim? The world, the universe, matter produces consciousness. The object is primary, the subject is secondary. Subject comes afterwards. You are basically matter interacting in this body, producing consciousness, and now that consciousness becomes aware of the world and matter. This is what is going on. This is the universe. What's my reality? As I think one philosopher actually said, what we are taught, our worldview today, we human beings are basically very long tubes, living tubes. And matter goes in one end and matter comes out of the other end. That's life. That's all. That's the fundamental thing which is going on here. So what's wrong with this worldview? We're going to investigate this. What are we investigating? The relationship between consciousness and matter. One answer is matter produces consciousness. What's wrong with that? I'm going to borrow an argument from a noted thinker these days, Bernardo Kastrup. He's a scientist and a philosopher also. So he says, the utter ridiculousness of the materialist position. 4 steps in this argument. What's the argument? Step 1, where we are all agreed that I am conscious. Every one of us agrees, whether you're a materialist, an idealist, a non-dualist, whatever you are. We all agree we are conscious. It's directly evident to us. I am conscious. Step 1. Step 2. Others are also conscious. That step is a little bit of a compromise. Why? Let's be very careful here. You or I, we are directly aware of our own consciousness. It's undeniable. I am conscious is undeniable. Not directly aware of other people's consciousnesses. And so why not? Are they zombies? No, but we are aware of their bodies. We are aware of their speech. We are aware of their behavior. If you are a telepath, you'll be aware of their thoughts. But you're never ever aware of their consciousness. If you just think, what is it to be aware of consciousness? You'll immediately see the only possible way of being aware of consciousness is you, the consciousness. It cannot be an objective consciousness. How would you be aware of an objective? What would it even mean to be aware of an objective consciousness? A consciousness out there. You can be aware of a body out there. You can be aware of the behavior of that body. You can be aware of the speech of that body. You can be even aware of the brain patterns and activities in that brain. You can even be aware, if you have yogic powers, of the thoughts in that person. But the consciousness, the sheer subjectivity, the only way you are aware of subjectivity is yourself. There's no other way. Anyway, Bernardo Kastrup says, let us grant that there are other conscious beings. Because there's one argument in favor of that. It happened at least once. I am conscious, I have no doubt about it. So it could be repeatable. These people, they look like me and behave like me, speak like me, so they also must be conscious. We are moving, this is logic, right? So you have to be very careful and conservative here. All right, so other people are conscious. Let's grant that. And then what are we conscious of? A material universe which only appears in consciousness. There is no evidence of any material universe existing outside consciousness, apart from consciousness. We assume that. We always assume that. But all of this has ever only been experienced in consciousness. In fact, that's a trivial statement because experience itself demands consciousness. What is experience? Consciousness plus object is equal to experience. Consciousness plus object is equal to experience. Universe is revealed in our experience, which means you cannot speak about matter or an external universe without reference to consciousness. I remember, this is a typical argument against Vedanta or any idealist philosophy. How can you say the world is unreal? I see it. I was told this by a person recently as a matter of an argument. I see it. The world, how can you say it's unreal? I see it. I said, look at what you just said. Why did you say, I see it? If the world, he was puzzled. What do you mean? If the world were real, why are you bringing yourself into it? The world is real. The world is real. Why are you saying, I see it? You've just introduced consciousness back into the equation again. To establish the reality of the world, to establish its primacy, to establish that it exists by itself, you have to bring in something else, consciousness. How weird is that? So that's the third step that Bernardo Kastrup says. There is simply no way of coming to an understanding that this external world exists externally, independent of you, the consciousness. But we assume that it does. We assume. That's the materialist assumption. I am conscious, everybody agrees. The others are conscious, let's grant that. And we are conscious of an external, independently existing material universe. Big loosening of logic there. And the fourth one is atrocious. It says this so-called highly doubtful, independently existing universe, which is highly doubtful, that is what is producing you, the absolutely certain consciousness. If you put it this way, from the consciousness perspective, then this argument seems utterly, it's atrocious. So 4 steps to expose the ridiculousness of the materialist position. And then, of course, you have the hard problem of consciousness. With David Chalmers, he coined the term, the hard problem of consciousness, that suppose we accept that the brain is producing consciousness. That's mainstream understanding. But if the brain is producing consciousness, then how is it doing so? What is the process? Because the last thing that we see in the brain is neurochemical activity, the little bits of electrical activity in the neurons. That's the last thing that we see. And if you ask the person, they'll say, I see, I hear, I smell, the water is warm, the rose is red, the sky is misty. All of these are experiences. But objectively, if you look at the brain of that person, all you see is tiny bits of electrical activity and neurochemical activity. How does that translate into the mistiness of the sky, the warmth of the water, the redness of the rose? This extremely rich inner experience. Technically, it's called qualia, subjective experience, first-person experience. How? So this is called in modern philosophy of mind and consciousness studies, this is called the explanatory gap. And what David Chalmers wants to say is that there's a problem in principle. It's not a technical problem. There are scientists, neuroscientists, and philosophers also, who say, look, you just keep doing more neuroscience and you'll solve the problem of consciousness. And David Chalmers says, you can't. You cannot, because it's a problem in principle. You're trying to explain the subjective with the help of the objective. I'll give you a classic argument which is given. A scientist and a philosopher gave this argument. Swami, I understand. We accept. We cannot explain consciousness through the brain right now. But give us time. And within 40 or 50 years, we'll be able to explain it. This is called promissory materialism. No, you may laugh, but it's a position, and it's a major position among philosophers right now, and philosophers of science also. Promissory materialism. What's the argument? That philosopher told me. 100 years back, life was considered a mystery. And today, 100 years later, we are able to understand the processes which you call life down to the molecular level. So that is a good enough explanation. And now we have explained life. Similarly, we'll explain consciousness. 2 problems with that argument. I'll just mention it and move forward. First, from a Vedantic perspective, I'll answer it from a Vedantic perspective and then from biology. From Vedantic perspective, you're making what is called a category mistake. Life is a complex phenomenon, objective phenomenon, prana. And you have explained it in terms of more fundamental objective phenomena, molecular processes in this body. So that is a good enough explanation. Complex phenomenon explained in terms of more fundamental processes. Both are objective. Objective complex phenomena called life explained in terms of objective fundamental phenomena called molecular processes in the cells and so on. Good. Entirely possible. Object explained by object. But now when you are saying the objective, this entirely subjective experience of life, the subjective experience of being conscious, you're going to explain through object activities in the brain. You're making a category mistake. It's called a category jump. It's not possible in principle what you are saying. So this is the Vedantic explanation. in Vedantic terms, you cannot explain Chaitana, consciousness, with the help of the Jada. The Jada is something, Jada means insentient. That's something that appears in consciousness. You're using it to explain consciousness back. You cannot do that. It's impossible. It's mixing up categories. And the second explanation, argument for this came from a doctor who told me, when I gave this argument to this doctor, he said, look, even the claim that we have understood life down to the details, that's very far from the truth. Doctors, biologists will tell you there are vast amounts of darkness in our understanding of the body itself. So it's not true that we have even explained life. All right. So matter generates consciousness. Problem. What about the other way around? Consciousness generates this universe. That's another view. Whose view is that? Not Advaita Vedanta. It is the view of all theistic religions. God creates the universe. God is the creator. Every theistic religion, all the varieties of theism in Hinduism, in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all of them say God created the universe. In fact, that's the definition of God in theistic religions. The creator, the source, the origin, the first cause. Srishti. In the Brahma Sutras, Janmadhyasya yataha, the creation, existence and dissolution of the universe comes from that. That is Brahman. So what about that? So why can't we say God created the consciousness created the matter, consciousness created object, God created the universe? The problem is it's difficult to prove such a God. Matter is obvious. As Ingersoll said, this life is all we have. God, heaven, all of those things, doubtful, question. That's why throughout the centuries you have had atheists, agnostics. It's possible to doubt the existence of God. God is wonderful, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, all great omnis, wonderful, except one problem. Does God exist? It's like you say this pot, clay pot, the source of this clay pot is clay. There's something called clay which was there before the pot came, and it will be there after the pot is destroyed, and the pot itself is produced by the clay. Now, if you think of the clay and the pot as two different things. There is the pot, there's something called clay, and I don't see that this is the clay itself. If I think something is there called clay, this is what Alan Watts, who lived here in the Bay Area in the 1950s and 60s, used to call it the crackpot theory. The thinking of God as an other, somewhere out there, some other entity which has produced this entity. You make God a matter of faith only. There is really no way of proving such a God. And today we have the largest number of atheists and agnostics ever in the history of humanity. That's the problem with the theistic theory, the traditional dualistic God-world duality. That's the problem. Suppose you do something else. Don't make matter the creator of consciousness. Don't make consciousness the creator of matter. Matter, energy, time, space, and consciousness, all of them are fundamental realities and interacting with each other. Suppose you do that. Neither creates the other. They all exist. Here is consciousness, here is matter, and we are experiencing matter through consciousness. This is life. Why are you saying that the brain is creating consciousness? Or why are you saying the consciousness is creating the universe? This is Sankhya. An ancient, very, very ancient philosophy. And very logical, because that's the way we experience life, subject-object. And what Sankhya is saying, subject is a fundamental reality, object is also a fundamental reality. The object is this universe, nature, prakriti. And the subject is consciousness. The word they used was purusha, which means spirit. And matter and spirit are eternal realities. And they're like parallel lines. And they're interacting with each other. Where? In us. We are the interactions of matter and spirit. What's the problem with this then? If you want to look for a problem, it's a very good philosophy. It's very ancient. It's the ancient Sankhya philosophy, the yoga philosophy. Today you have something like panpsychism. David Chalmers himself is a proponent of a variety of panpsychism, that consciousness is all pervading in this universe and it is a fundamental reality. You can't reduce it to brain. It uses the body, mind, brain, but you can't reduce it to brain. The problem with this is the problem with all dualisms. If there are two fundamentally different realities, how do they interact? Where do they touch? If consciousness is utterly different from matter, then at the point at where they interact, they touch, is that matter or consciousness? Because they're utterly different. And it's no use giving, Swami, your old light example, it's no use giving that example. Because this is a material light and it illumines a material object. Both are material. That's why this light is able to illumine the object. So you can't say that consciousness is utterly different from material universe and yet they are somehow interacting. How? Descartes faced the same problem 300 years ago when he talked about the mind-body duality. He didn't distinguish between mind and consciousness, but basically, in a general sense, the same problem. Mind-body duality. Then if you have mind-body duality, you must explain how mind and body are interacting. Because they are interacting. Here, I'm raising my hand. Here is the body. And I can experience the mind deciding, raise the hand. So mind and body are interacting. But how? Where? If they're two different things. He had a student, Princess Elizabeth, I think of Bohemia. So being a princess, she had access to the best teachers. So Descartes was her teacher, and they would write letters to each other. And she writes of the style in those days, what a wonderful thing you have taught us, Monsieur Descartes. But I have a question. Maybe it is my weak feminine brain, but feminine mind, I'm unable to understand the depths of your profound philosophy. And she always writes like that. And she asked this precise question. So this mind and this body, how do they interact? Where do they come in contact? That you have not explained. Now Descartes is in trouble. So he said, there's actually the pineal gland. It's in the brain. That was the physiology. It is true. But it's a physiology, that's all they knew at that time. That's where the mind and the body come into contact. She writes back. She said, again, excuse my poor feminine understanding, but the pineal gland seems to be a part of the body. And so how does the mind interact with the body there? Then poor Descartes is pushed into a corner. He said, actually there are vapors, gases inside this. The mind pushes the gases push the pineal gland, and the pineal gland pushes the body. You can imagine this faint smile that Princess Elizabeth must have had. She let him off the hook, she didn't ask. But that's the problem. Now you have this. So now you have the stage set for the Vedantic answer to this, the Advaitic answer. The Advaitic answer is that not that consciousness is produced by matter, not that matter is produced by consciousness, not that consciousness and matter are fundamental realities somehow interacting, pineal gland. No. The Vedantic understanding is that consciousness is fundamental and matter is an appearance in consciousness. Since matter is an appearance in consciousness, there is no problem of interaction because ultimately what appears in consciousness is nothing other than consciousness. Suppose in your mind you're dreaming a dream world in your dreams. If you ask, how does that dreaming mind interact with the dream world? No problem, because the dream world doesn't exist outside that mind. It's that mind alone which is appearing as the dream world. It is you, the consciousness, what we talked about yesterday, that is appearing as the objective universe. In me, that light appears a mind and a body. What is this mind? What is this body? At its most fundamental level, it's nothing other than the light which you are. You yourself appear to yourself as this universe. There is one consciousness alone in all bodies and minds. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Know me to be the knower of the field in all fields. And what are these fields? They are all appearances in me, the one light. Ashtavakra says, Sarva bhuteshu chatmanam, sarva bhutani chatmani. And this is taken from the Ishopanishad, where it says, Yastu sarvani bhutani, atmanyeva anupashyati, sarva bhuteshu chatmanam, tatona vijugupsate. Who sees all beings in the light, that is oneself, and sees that light in all beings, and thus does not hate. Because I am all of this. Ramana Maharshi says, the universe is the expansion of the self. That's why his one pointed instruction was, find out who am I. Once you find out who am I, here is the answer. You will discover I am this limitless light. And this limitless light appears to itself as mind and senses and body and universe and the worlds and all other beings. So it is one limitless, unbounded light, but appearing as subject and object. And therefore the panorama of life is possible. Non-duality is thus established. It is light without a second. How come nobody is warning me of the time? Where's the timekeeper? I know it's there, but there was a very active timekeeper here. Yeah, we have just run out of time. We are missing the timekeeper. There's this is what I call the non-duality of light. Jyotir Advaitam. I am that light, and there is no second. All that appears to me as a second is nothing other than the self that I am. The non-duality of light. This light that I am is in all beings, and all beings are appearing in that light. I pray to Sri Ramakrishna, Ma Sharada, Swami Vivekananda, that this light which is already there, that it becomes more and more obvious to us in our life, and thus all our problems are solved forever. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you very much.